Hey guys, welcome to our September compilation video. I know, wow, we're actually out the first couple of days of September. It's like I'm Johnny on the spot all of a sudden. We can thank Revell for that. They actually updated the website this morning to reflect their September releases, which was a good thing because I was doing a little background on them, trying to figure out what they would be in advance of the actual official update. And I would have missed a couple of things because they were not supposed to be coming out until October, but they got pushed up to this month. So there's actually going to be 6 releases from Revell on things with wheels that should be driven on roads. Not road wheels, because those are on tanks. But we have a good little slate of things coming out here. A few things have come out this morning over in Japan that we'll talk about on Friday that catch up some of the late lingering releases from the spring hobby show before we head into the fall hobby show in a couple of weeks here at the end of September. The end of September. Still not officially with the transition over into the new month here yet. But there's some good stuff coming out here. Not a whole lot of new stuff, but there are some, like I said, we're still waiting on 2 or 3 Aoshima kits from Shizuka. We're waiting on the Bell kits, Volkswagen to finally make its way into distribution, and a few other things. So, talking about September, we'll start on the domestic side of things first. Like I mentioned, Revell having 6 automotive releases this month. They are the pre-painted version of the 2014 Corvette Stingray. This will be a version of the Snap-Tight kit, basically, that just came out, except this will have a engine of sorts. If you've been exposed to any of the pre-painted kits that Revell has done so far, the Challenger or the Camaro or the Mustang, then you know that these engines tend to be about 5 or 6 pieces. They're very simplified. It's, aimed at a young adult modeler who's above the Snap-Tight level, but not quite into the full-on glue kit level yet. Like all of Revell's pre-paints, this one will be just the body in pre-paint. You will have to paint and glue together the rest of the kit. Revell says it has 37 parts, but that was the same amount of parts that the Snap-Tight kit had, and I don't believe they took stuff out so they could put the engine in, so it's probably more like 40 or 50. It will be pre-painted in Victory Red, or whatever they're calling their dark red on the Corvette these days. And, it is what it is. Whether or not we're ever going to get full detail, 100-plus piece glue model kits of any of these modern-day U.S. sports cars anymore is anybody's guess. I'm looking now and seeing that the unpainted version of the Camaro ZL1, guys may not even remember about that, but, they did the 2 pre-painted versions, and everyone cried a river because there were no decals. And if you strip the pre-painted ZL1, you effectively had no way to restripe the car. They were going to do an unpainted, just give it to you cast in white and have you do everything to it with decals. And that is now on deck for December. And it was supposed to be I believe a first or second quarter of 2015 kit. And it's just, I don't think they care. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, like I do with a lot of Revell stuff, but I just think they don't really care in the sense that the pre-paints are selling well enough that they just don't care if they ever release the unpainted one, because I don't think the sales will be there to generate it, or they don't think the sales will be there to generate it. The pre-painted kits, look how many guys ran out and bought the Snap-Tight version of the Corvette. You see them built all over, at least the forums. I really haven't seen too many built on YouTube yet. And that's a kid's model. It's designed literally for like 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. It's a Snap-Tight kit. It's all, molded in color and stuff like that. And then a whole bunch of adults went out and bought that, even though, a more complicated, if you want to call it that, kit was coming out. And, it was 60 days later. So how well is this kit going to sell now because everybody already has a Snap-Tight kit? Do you need 2 2014 Corvettes? And if you need 2, do you need a third one? Do you need a full detail kit? I don't know, guys. It seems to me that they're going to try to attract the young kids in with the modern day cars, but they're not going to give those same modern day cars the full treatment like they would have, which is, not to get off on too long of a diatribe about it, it's kind of a shame because that's sort of been what the staple of the hobby has been for all these guys who like to run around complaining that, there's too many modern day cars. And they want the cars from their youth. When those cars were being put out originally, when they were kids, those were modern-day cars, were they not? I mean, yeah, it's neat to have, let's see, the Pending, the 62 Pontiac is the Pending kit from Mobius. But for a lot of people who were kids in the 1960s, a 1962 Pontiac, guess what? That was a brand-new car back then. Why did you guys all get to build brand-new model kits and now kids don't. I just don't get that. But at any rate, moving along, reissue of the Revell 1/25th scale Porsche 914-6. This will be a reissue of the last way it was put out, which is a 2-in-1. You can build it as a street car or as a road racing version. This does still have the reportedly fiddly. I've never actually had a 914-6, so I really don't know. Where the windshield frame is separate, that has not always been the best fitting windshield frame. The windshield frame being separate because the road racing version sort of has a wraparound Lexan windscreen that's probably only half the height of the actual windshield. So when this kit was designed, it was designed with a separate windshield frame, obviously, so that you didn't have to saw the old one off. Although I think probably making people saw the windshield screen off to put the windscreen on would have been the better option. But it was, 1970s Revell, and nobody was really thinking like that back then. Also a reissue of the 1/16th scale, so bigger scale, Kenworth W900. This is, of course, a sort of a twin to the 1/16th scale Peterbilt that they put out. It has 278 parts, so in addition to being big, it's also a very robust kit. I've not built large-scale trucks. I know it was ironic. I drive a truck, and I don't really build trucks, but, it's one of those things. I see them all day. I don't see them at home, too. The new tool, sort of, kind of, because it's really been sitting around for 10-plus years now, the new tool 1972 Ford Torino, the Starsky and Hutch car. I know for a lot of people on Revell's Facebook page, they believe this kit was never going to come out, and that Revell had somehow sold out because they weren't going to release this kit. It's an 88-part kit. It is very monogram-like tooled. You guys are going to have a lot of what we we'll call a lot of times the melting parts, where your battery goes here and it just keeps going down until the fender well stops. It's got that kind of tooling feel to it. It's definitely not a modern 2014, 2015 Revell tool by any stretch of the imagination. It is believed that this tooling was made to run hybrid die-cast plastic, because this tooling was done in 2004, back when the last Starsky and Hutch movie came out, the one with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson in it. And it's just been parked and sitting there for whatever reason until now. It is believed, although nobody can confirm it yet, that they did fix the window openings. The C-pillar window opening was really wonky looking in the test shots, probably because 11 years old. It was a different ownership of Revell Monogram back then. That was back, I believe, after Benny Smith had gotten rid of them and before Habaco bought them, when they were being run by the guy who would later go and destroy Lindbergh. So, accuracy of those kits in the early 2000s, you know what you're dealing with there. Like I said, it's 88 pieces, so it's not a real robust kit, but it's also the first 72 Torino, and I understand why people are excited about it. I personally am not that excited about it, because you can only build it as a Starsky and Hutch car. They're not giving you a set of regular, wheels with this. It comes with the 5-slot mags, or not really no mags, but the 5-slot big and little tires, wheels from the movie car. It comes with allegedly a police radio and a Kojak light and the other stuff to make it into the Starsky and Hutch car. And that kind of parks. I mean, could you get the wheels someplace else? Sure. Could you put other wheels on it? Yeah, but it would have been nice to, I don't know, at this point when you were going to go back and fix the body tooling, to go ahead and just tool up the factory stock wheels, because I don't think the car is that far away from factory stock as the Starsky and Hutch car, that, throwing an extra set of wheels into it would have been too much to ask for those of us who really, I'm 38. I remember Starsky and Hutch vaguely, the TV show, and I did see the movie, as goofy as that was, but it's not, neither one of those things is enough to motivate me to go out and buy this strictly for the Starsky and Hutch tie-in. Again, whether or not there'll ever be another version of this, you see a lot of people go, well, they could do this and this to make it into other things. So that's all speculation of people on forums who have no inside information whatsoever for the most part. And because this tooling was done and paid for a decade ago by a different development team, by a different ownership of Revell, there's no impetus for the current Revell management to do other things with it. So it remains to be seen if anything else was tooled up with it back then 10 years ago. Also reissuing the Fast and the Furious tied in Mitsubishi Eclipse. This is Brian's Mitsubishi. I believe this kit can only be built in the very customized tuner fashion of the movie car. It does have a full detail engine, or at least most of one, and you do have a choice of wheels. But as far as I know, I'd never bought this kit originally when it was out under the Tuner series. As far as I know, you cannot actually build this as just a run-of-the-mill Mitsubishi Eclipse. And I know for probably the great majority, nobody cares. They're going to buy this for the movie tie-in to make the movie car. But as somebody who has driven a series of Mitsubishi Eclipses, I've never owned them, but I've driven a bunch of them. I would personally be okay with a second and third gen Mitsubishi Eclipse model kit. Make them curbside, kick them out for a couple, $15-20 from Fujimi. That's fine. But it's a shame you can't do anything else with this without going into a whole lot of body corrections to make it into regular factory stock car. And lastly, they're going to be reissuing the old Brock Racing Enterprises Datsun 240Z road racing car. This is a twin to the BRE Nissan 510 that came out earlier this year. And like the 510, it is going to be a selected special programs release, meaning it is a one-run and done, if you will, a release. How this differentiates, if you've never participated that much in the SSP thing, is like the car trailer, the auto transport trailer that Revell put out a couple months ago that immediately sold out as soon as it hit the shelves, more or less, because they didn't do a large enough production run, but they did one they felt was sufficient, and it turned out the demand was greater than the supply. They're expecting to restock that in early November if you didn't get one. So you don't need to panic or pay too much on eBay for one. It'll be coming back out. They're running more of them. However, these SSP cars, like the 510, like this 240Z, they are only going to run the one time. So if you don't get one, you are going to have to go try to track one down. If anybody needs a 510, one of my local hobby shops has two of them sitting on the shelves. So they're not as unobtainium as some people would like to make them out to be. It just depends on where you're at and how well they sold. Moving over to round two. Round two has, 6 kits coming out that have automotive-related wheels to them. They're going to be reissuing the 1971 Ford Thunderbird. This was last seen under the Model King, limited release. I think one of my hobby shops still has one of those on the shelves. You're going to get a retro box art, pad-printed drag slicks, and they're going to be redoing the Birds of Paradise psychedelic decal sheet that came with this kit originally. For those people who've never seen one of these kits, it is kind of it's not a 2-in-1. Well, I guess it is 2-in-1 because it has drag parts, but it's not. But the one thing about it is it's a promo-based kit, so you can build it with a promo-style engine insert for the bottom of the chassis, so you just see the bottom of the motor like a curbside, or it does have a full engine that you can put into it. They're going to be reissuing with round two. You guys should just know everything from round two is always a reissue for the most part. They're going to be doing the rebox bringing it back out, I guess I should say, of the 1923 Ford Model T delivery van. Get your retro box art with that. This was only available. This is not like the Fruity wagon where you could build it into like a dragster or it was a fruit wagon. The delivery van is only a factory stock vehicle. You're getting a retro box art. It has the original decals, and then it also has a tie-in with Nestle, where they're going to be putting 4 vintage, I don't believe they're all going to be 1920s vintage necessarily, but 4 vintage Nestle brands are going to be in the decal sheet. As of yet, nobody seems to know what those are, because Round 2's actual website, we got a lot of the more detailed information from, has been down for the last 2 weeks, going through Auto World, which is their direct online retailer, sort of the way Tower Hobbies is Revell's direct online retailer, and they don't say what it is, just that they're going to be 4 Nestle historic delicious decals. They're calling it the chocolate and sweet extra package or something like that. I don't think it's going to make the kit cost any more than it would normally, but it's just an interesting little tie-in, getting beyond just the regular decals. For the truck guys, they're going to be reissuing the Shell Fruhoff tanker trailer. Going to have brand new decals set in there from Shell. So this is, I believe it was reissued with Texaco decals the last time. And you get retro box art for a design that didn't exist. Also, from Lindbergh, we'll just skip around here for a second. Lindbergh, they're going to be reissuing the Dodge L700 with a Shell tanker. So this is been done before by Lindbergh under its J. Lloyd ownership, where they issued the truck and the trailer combined. This is going to be done with again, this time with a Shell tie-in. So they're going to have new Shell decals with this as well, but they're going to be more period. As you know, the Dodge L700 is a little bit older than the Fruhoff trailer is, and so the shell decals will be a little bit older. Dodge L700 tooling, of course, is the old IMC tooling, so buyer beware with that. Although I haven't heard that it's one of those kits that's not junk. It's just you got to put your time into it. Lastly, two more kits, one from AMT, and that is the 1989 Batmobile from the Michael Keaton movie. You may recall, if you're old enough to be into the hobby really hard back then, Scale Auto Enthusiasts did an entire contest about that. They were calling the Batmobile contest, and then had to change it to the Kit 6579 contest because Universal or whoever did the movie, I think it was Universal, came at them with a whole bunch of copyright infringement because they're using the Batmobile logos and name without permission, so they just changed it to the stock number for the kit. So it's a reissue straight up of that kit. There's not really a vintage box art to put that into because, it's only, 15 years old at this point. So that is what it is. Also, Lindbergh is going to be redoing and reissuing the 1996 Crown Victoria Snap-Tight car, the police car. We're paying the wrong direction. There we go. The police car. This time it's going to be pre-painted body. It's going to be a security tie-in. It's going to have a choice of a bunch of different security decals, from asylum, lunatic asylum to mall cop to a bunch of weird different things. Apparently, whenever you buy one, it's going to be in one of 4 paint jobs, and it may or may not say on the box. I'm sure it will say on the box, but if you were to order it through Auto World, you would just get something at random. You can't request one specifically. It's also sort of interestingly going to come with a display case. Now, the reason is because they're going to give you sort of a die-cut cardboard background to put the car in front of, but it's also going to be just a regular straight-up display case. The cardboard thing is not going to be mounted to it, at least to my understanding. So if you wanted to go spend $25 on what is a $6 model kit to get the case, it's an option, I guess. It's one of those things where they ran off so many of them originally when Lindbergh was under the Craft House ownership, and then subsequently ran off so many more of them in the so-called pre-painted State Police series that they did under Jay Lloyd. And those kits, for the most part, all wound up at Ollie's and other discounters. When the West Coast warehouse fire took place, that allowed the Dodge Charger police car kit to come out back in 2008. That those kits are really only worth about $5 or $6 because that's all they were selling for at Ollie's at the time. Some of those kits I saw go out the door for under $4 because they just couldn't get rid of them. I just don't see the reason to bring it back out. I mean, the tooling exists, and now there's the Revell Swoop Build and Play. There are entirely too many 1996 Crown Victoria kits floating around. There's just no need for them anymore. You could melt them down and turn them into something else at this point. So, overseas into Japan, Aoshima only has 2 kits that they're trying to put out for September on the reissue side of things. That is the JZX 100 Toyota Chaser Aero and the A86 Truno Initial D Volume 37. That is, of course, as we talked about before, the Toyota Truno kit that has all of the parts in it from the Initial D series in its entirety. You can build anything from the basic Truno all the way up to the full-on race car at the end of the series. It's always the one I recommend for anybody who's looking to go into the initial, or looking just for a Toyota Truno period, or looking to go in the Initial D series, because you can build it any way that the kit was offered, because it has all the parts. Nothing was ever taken out of it. Hasegawa, we've talked about this before, is going to be reissuing, finally, the Japanese Touring Car Championship Autotech BMW 318i. That originally had been moved to October 1st. It has now been moved all the way back to September 8th. By back, I mean forwards, really. And so that'll be out in about a week, or abouts. Trumpeter, we talked about this, is reissuing their 1/12 scale Ford GT40 Mark II. Big scale car. I've heard it's over engineered and fiddly. I have never had one, and I know for the most part, most people here in the United States would run on fire away from Trumpeter. I don't know that kit is any better or worse than anything else Trumpeter has ever attempted to do or done. Tamiya, we've talked about this with great glee, of course, is reissuing the Jägermeister and the Alfa Corsa versions of their Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti DTM race car. The Alpha Corsa being the 1993 and the Jägermeister being the 1994 versions. So they are two separate kits. It's not a two-in-one. These are two. Like I said, the Alpha Corsa is one kit. It's a red box art car. Jägermeister is another kit, orange box art car. There is replacement decals for the Jägermeister logos if you want to go ahead and get the Shunko set. I don't know if it's any better or worse than the Tamiya set. I believe it exists primarily because the kit is so old, and 1990s Tamiya kits were known for having really, really crappy decals. Of course, that's not a problem this time because these decals will be freshly printed. There are replacements for the Alpha Corsa logos as well from Studio 27. Studio 27 also does decals for about another 7 or 8 versions of the 1993-1994 Alfa Romeo kits in general, and their carbon fiber detail set is still available as well. Fujimi, bringing this to a close, is going to be doing 5 kits here in September. They are a reissue of the Mazda RX-7 Type RS. This is an FD3S, so mid-1990s. The Type RS slightly upgraded to a point where you really wouldn't notice in the model kit because it's curbside. This does come with window masks for the first time, which means if they do go back and reissue any of the other FD3S RX-7s from here on out, they should all have window masks in it, which will be nice. They're going to be reissuing the Porsche 928 S4. The S4 version has been available for a little while. It's mostly been reissuing the turbo version. I don't know if there's actually any real difference between the two other than some decals. I guess we'll find out here in a little bit. They're going to be reissuing the Ferrari 288 GTO. Very cool because this is, as we talked about a couple of videos ago, is going to be the reissue of the Enthusiast Series kit. So this is a 250-part Ferrari kit. It is, of course, the homogenization version of the, I can't think of what the Ferrari the 288 GTO is the homogenization of. But at any rate, this is the full Monty kit. It is Enthusiast Series kit, and it's going to be like $18. Recently, I saw one in the hobby shop for like $45. The previous reissue of it. So it's a really great opportunity if you're interested in Enthusiast Series kits, you're interested in those 1980s Ferraris, to go grab this while it's around for a really dirt cheap price, considering the content of it. The Enthusiast Series kits do have the reputation of being, fiddly or over-engineered. 250-part kit for a 124 scale car is a lot of parts, of course, but it is certainly a buildable kit. Seen a lot of them done, and if you want to go test your modeling skills, this is one of the Enthusiast Series is probably the primary way to go do that at this point. Is Tamiya kits, can be very, very robust, but they're usually not very challenging. Or patience requiring, the shake and bake. Put everything into a box, you shake it around, and it comes back out a built model kit. Enthusiast Series kits, like I said, far from unbuildable, very detailed in some cases, very fiddly in others. It all depends on what the kit is. I do have a 288 GTO. I haven't really bothered to do much with it other than to go, ooh, look, I have an Enthusiast Series kit. And, it's not a weekend project is what I'm saying. A weekend project could be, though, however, the reissue of the Suzuki Alto, a little K car from Suzuki. This is coming one of 3 ways, either a turbo, a twin cam, or the Alto Works. These were like little 1 liter 3-cylinder K cars from the 1980s. It's a very, very basic kit. I think it might actually been designed to be a snap-type kit. If it's not, it's got that sort of quality where it's about 30, 40 parts. There's not a lot to it, even with all the parts included, just a couple of different sets of wheels and like a hood scoop. If you've seen the Daihatsu Move review video I did where you just glue a hood scoop on and that's what turns it into a Daihatsu Move Turbo RS, it's sort of the same principle. And lastly, Good Smile Racing, we talked about this when the kit announcement came out, is moving to the Mercedes-Benz SLS for the 2015 series. And this will be a kit of that car from the opening race this year. So if you've been collecting your GSR BMWs, we're on Mercedes now. I don't know exactly why the team changed necessarily, but we talked about before. Fujimi sponsors the Good Smile Racing team partially, so that's why they've been doing all the kits. And if you really want to go back to the 2010, 2011 BMW, there are something like 12 or 13 BMW kits and now this Mercedes. So you could field pretty much every car that GSR has put out in every paint version that they've ever done pretty much through Fujimi. And that, guys, pretty much is what September is. So there's going to be some interesting kits out there for sure. We're still waiting on, like I said, on a few Aoshima things. and a few other things that are just sort of free floating in space right now. But the third quarter for the most part is going to be wrapped up here in Japan, more or less on time, because October, November, December is really the fourth quarter start. So I think for the most part, everything out of Japan on time. Revel, can't say that. They are catching up, but they're still missing some things. I was going to say, there's something rattling around in there. If you're interested in those Revel NASCAR kits, remember they're going to be doing the Dodges up front. Or no, the Ford Fusions, excuse me. They're doing the Ford Fusions up front, Brad Keselowski's and somebody else's. Those are also right now showing December releases. So if you're waiting on the NASCAR season to start, it ain't going to start till at least Christmas. Maybe later. So, I know coming up on the 5th, which is Friday, they're going to be, Revel is also going to be announcing at least the new Star Wars kits. I don't know if that includes the full flyer for the fourth quarter or not, but it's going to be getting kind of close. I imagine it probably just will be. So we might have that to talk about. And then we'll have a regular Friday show on Friday regardless. So we'll see you guys on the other side.